Hi, everyone. This is Jim with JP Reacts, where you come to hear from politicians to find out what they really mean when what they're saying in the public doesn't always make sense. So I hope everybody had a great Thanksgiving, and this is the follow-up to the weekend. I do have one more Thanksgiving message I want to share with you. It's Donald Trump's message to the troops. So hopefully we get something out of it and you can learn a lot from it. We'll check it out right after this. Okay, so let's jump right into it. This is the very beginning part of his message to the troops.
Well, I'm thrilled to be on line with heroic members of the United States military, incredible people. I want to wish you all a very happy Thanksgiving. We're going to have a great year. We have a year coming up. The foundations are ready for one of the best years we've ever had.
All right, so before we even get started, I know this has been in the news. I wanted to address it. He has a tiny desk. What's going on with the tiny desk? I don't know. It doesn't really make a difference to the policy. It's just something that I feel like we should probably mention because it is a tiny desk and it is a little weird. But it has nothing to do with policy, but I wanted to, since it's been in the news and everybody's making fun of it, I want to make sure I didn't just ignore it. So clearly he has a tiny desk, and we'll move on from here. We won't mention it again. So let's check out more a substantive part of his message to the troops.
I want to recognize Lieutenant Colonel Timothy Redhair and the United States Army 36th Infantry Division. Tremendous people. From your base in Kuwait, you support our fight against radical Islamic terrorism and help combat Iranian aggression. We salute you. Thank you very much.
Okay, in this part of the message, he's talking about deployment in the Middle East and referenced some aggression from Iran. Now, Iran clearly doesn't always play nice with its neighbors or with us, so it's not like there's no merit to there being aggression from Iran, but it's nothing out of the ordinary from what's normal, their normal interactions through Hezbollah and other extremist groups in the region. There's no specific aggression towards the United States outside of them just generally not liking us since the revolution. So not really sure what he's referencing here in his reference to Iranian aggression, because there's nothing really new that's happened. So I wonder if he's going to bring it up in the future or what he's talking about. I know in the news there was some noise from Israel saying that there may be strikes from the United States on Iran. Hopefully that's not true. An unprompted strike against Iran is really going to cause a lot of trouble, not just in our region, but for us as well. So let's see what the next thing he has to say.
The fight straight to the enemy so that American families can sleep soundly at home. We've been building up our military. We spent $2.5 trillion in the last 3.5 years, and we've never had anything like it in terms of equipment and all of the elements that we put together. Space Force, we're very proud of, brand new. Nobody thought that could happen.
Okay, so he brought up defense spending over these 4 years he's been in office, and I wanted just to do a quick comparison to what he's referring to. He said $2.5 trillion over the last 4 years, which is a lot of money, and wish we could spend that money in more productive places, but let's just do a quick comparison to how that rates to the rest of the world. So breaking down, the data I have is from 2019. I will link to it in the description. It's on Wikipedia, but they have the direct source link in there, so you could always look it up if you don't trust Wikipedia. In 2019, the United States spent $732 billion on defense spending. Next closest country was China with 261. So let's see how many countries it takes until we get to 732. So I got 261 from China. Next one was 71.1 from India. After that, you have the Russian Federation at 65.1 billion. We're a little lower halfway there. Next one is Saudi Arabia at 61.9 billion. After that, you have France at 50.1 billion. Next up is Germany at 49.3 billion. Next up is the UK at 48.7 billion. And then Japan at 47.6 billion. We're still not there yet. Next, South Korea, 43.9, still not there yet. List is Brazil, a big jump down. They're all the way down to 26.9. And that puts us so far at 725.6 million for countries 2 through 11. Combined still have less spent on their defense spending than the United States. Not saying that's good or bad. I'm saying that that's a lot of money we're spending on defense. So, and this is not new spending. We've been in the top for quite a long time. If you look back at previous years, even prior to President Trump, you'll see we are clearly front runners on defense spending, no matter who the president has been over the last 20, 30 years. So let's check out his next comment.
Job, and your country is doing well. We just set a record in the stock market, over 30,000 in the Dow Jones Industrial Average, over 30,000. Think of that. Nobody ever thought we were going to hit that. During a pandemic, the whole world is suffering this tremendous pandemic, not just us, the world. And you wouldn't know that to listen to the news reports, but the whole world is suffering, and we are rounding the curve. The vaccines are being delivered literally. It'll start next week and the week after, and it'll hit the frontline workers and seniors and doctors, nurses, a lot of people going to start, and we're going very quickly. 2 companies already announced, a 3rd one coming up, and a 4th and 5th one coming up soon also. So.
All right, so his next comment to the troops was for some reason referring back to the economy. He said something about the Dow Jones at 30,000 and how no one ever expected it to be at 30,000. Financial experts routinely expect the Dow Jones to continue to go up. It has throughout history. There are brief dips during recessions, but the Dow Jones is usually an indicator of how the wealthy are doing in this country, not necessarily an indicator of how regular Americans are doing in this country. So the Dow Jones isn't exactly the best indicator of it. He referred to that the world has been dealing with COVID, which is true. It's a worldwide pandemic. But the way he phrases it makes it sound like the news media is covering the United States unfairly, when clearly the United States has done a much poorer job with COVID than the rest of the world, especially the developed world. Western European countries, even a lot of Asian countries have done much better dealing with COVID than the United States has done under President Trump. He also keeps saying we're rounding the curve on the pandemic. This is like the 4th, 5th time he said that, so I'm not really sure what he means by that other than misleading or outright lying about where we're going in the future. It's hard to say. It's a cliche that doesn't really mean anything, especially given the context where he keeps saying it over and over again. And then he mentioned that vaccines were coming up in the next 2 or 3 weeks, or 1 or 2 weeks. There's no evidence of that. They are still saying end of December, beginning of January, there should be a vaccine for frontline workers and people at risk, but it's still not technically approved, like I mentioned in the last video, so it's hard to imagine production ramping up that quickly by the end of the year. So we'll see how it goes. Hopefully I'm wrong and the president's right and he knows something I don't, but all indications point to that next week or the week after is probably not when it's going to be available. So, but we'll see. Maybe it will be available and we can go from there. So let's check out this next part of the video from President Trump.
So much, when we took over, our military was very depleted. You know that very well. You know it probably better than most with the Air Force, because the planes were old, they were tired, and now you have all brand new F-35s coming and others. And your tankers, your bombers, the whole thing, they're all coming. Hopefully we never have to use it for war, but we're better prepared than we ever have been. When I came in 4 years ago, hard to believe, almost 4 years ago, we were in sad shape, and now we're in phenomenal shape.
Okay, in this part, he's really focusing in on how much more he's done for the military. Obviously, this is a military call. There is no evidence that there was depleted equipment or that Our military was running in some decrepit shape. Like I mentioned in the previous answer, we've been spending well north of $600 billion per year on defense spending. So our military has not been underserviced or underprepared. There is some argument back in the beginning parts of the Gulf War that President Bush started that our military didn't have the equipment necessary to fight the war that they were fighting. But that is not to say that they didn't have some of the best equipment in the world. It's just that they didn't have, the fight ended up being different than what they thought. So they didn't have equipment that matched the fight that they were fighting. But there is no evidence that our military was in bad shape prior to President Trump. In fact, it is clearly still the best in the world. So that's an unusual statement from him. This next clip I'm going to show you is a little bit longer. It's about 2 minutes, but there's just not really a good part to clip up for this because it covers a lot of territory. It's about the election results. It was after he signed off from speaking with the troops and tossed it to the press that was in the room. So let's listen to that response and we'll try to go through as much of it as possible. So let's listen real quick.
Don't know what is last. If you look at what's going on, you have to really take a look at what's going on. They're finding tremendous discrepancies in the votes, and nobody believes those numbers. Those numbers are incorrect numbers. A lot of numbers have already been reported. You're going to see things happening over the next week or two that are going to be shocking to people. If you look at the numbers in Michigan, if you look at the numbers in Pennsylvania, if you look at fraudulent voting and fraudulent votes, so I can't say what's first and what's last in terms of is this the last one or is this the first one of a second term? We'll see what happens. Nobody wants to see the kind of fraud that this election has really come to represent. We are looking at things that are so bad in Georgia. They don't want to show us signatures. The reason they don't want to show us signatures is very simple, because we will find thousands and thousands, a very close race, it's hair thin, but we'll find thousands and thousands of discrepancies, fraud. Why they aren't wanting to show those signatures is amazing. They're doing recounts, and even in the recount they found thousands of votes that were off. But now we want to look at the signatures, and you will find tens of thousands of false ballots, forged ballots. You'll see it all over. You're going to see a lot of it. And you go to Pennsylvania, you saw the meeting we had yesterday with Pennsylvania. You saw people come up, they went to vote, and they said, no, you can't vote. Somebody else already sent in a ballot, and a woman. But this is happening tens of thousands of times. I think it was 600 and some odd thousand, 687,000 fraudulent votes cast in Pennsylvania. And I will tell you, if you look at the State House now, the Republican State House, they're starting to see what's going on there. But they've really known it for a long time. Then you go to Michigan, and you look at what happened in Wayne County in Detroit. I went through a list. I went almost every county, and you see it, almost every, by 78%, 72%, 68%, going through the list. Then you get to Wayne, and something happened. Tremendous numbers. You saw the canvassers, they refused to sign their document because they said, we can't sign a fraudulent document. Horrible things went on. That's in Wayne County, Detroit. But you look at the votes that were just tabulated and they were left today. Look at all the counties. I won almost all of them, except Detroit was so egregious. It was phony. Look at what's going on in Wisconsin. Wisconsin, they're finding tremendous discrepancy. You just take a look at that, tremendous discrepancy, and elsewhere. So.
Okay, so like I said, there's a lot in this section. It's a longer section. Let's just straight out say there is no evidence that there has been election fraud, no evidence of massive amounts of miscounted votes, no evidence of massive amount of mismatched signatures. and no evidence that anybody's preventing anyone in the GOP or the Trump campaign from witnessing what they need to witness to certify that the election has moved forward. He mentioned Detroit and how big bunch of votes showed up in Detroit. He listed all these counties in Michigan went for him in big percentages, but Wayne County, which is where Detroit is, was big for President-elect Biden. That's to be expected. Democrats tend to do better in big cities, and Republicans tend to do better in rural areas. So all those other counties were rural counties in Michigan. They weren't city centers in Michigan. Wayne County is a city center in Michigan, so that's where Detroit is. And also, that's where the majority of the citizens of Michigan live, is in Wayne County, Detroit, and its suburbs. So it makes sense that there's more votes in that county. It also makes sense, given demographics, that Joe Biden would do better in that county than President Trump. So it's not really a big surprise in that county. And like I said, there is no issues anywhere. And when you look at what President Trump's legal team is actually doing on these lawsuits, they're not even arguing fraud. They're not even arguing some of these things they're saying in public. It doesn't match. He's losing all the legal cases anyway. I think last count is like one out of 40 cases he's won, and that was for just during the election counting way back around Election Day to move the observers closer, both the Republican and the Democrat observers closer to the vote counting. So that's really the only thing he's won. And I'm going to link in the description to a video from Legal Eagle that he put out on Sunday, the 29th. And it's a really good explainer about how this has been going on the legal side for President Trump's team. So he's a lawyer. He knows more about this stuff. If you're not subscribed to his channel, I definitely would. I'm subscribed to his channel. So I would definitely make sure you check him out. So let's see what President Trump says next.
It's going to be a very hard thing to concede because we know there was massive fraud. So as to whether or not I can get this apparatus moving this quickly, because time isn't on our side, everything else is on our side, facts are on our side. This was a massive fraud.
Okay, in this section, he was asked if the Electoral College, which votes on December 14th, votes the way it's expected to vote, which is for President-elect Biden in big numbers. He won the Electoral College very handily with 306 electoral votes, only needing 270. Would President Trump concede? Long story short, he says that he will not concede. In the first part, he basically said he knows the answer, he doesn't want to say it, but which led me to believe that he would concede at that point, but he's still claiming fraud, which we've gone over isn't a thing in this election. And at the end, which I didn't include in the video clip, he does say that he would not concede. Concession doesn't really matter. It's not in the law. It's just a custom. So when the Electoral College meets and votes, that's the end of the election. The House and Senate will certify it, and it'll be over. There's legalities will have taken care of themselves. The process will have worked the way it's supposed to work. Concession or no concession, it doesn't really matter. So let's check out this next section.
Well, I told them today, I think you're dealing in a very fraudulent system. I think I'm very worried about that. They are tremendous people. Kelly Loeffler, David Perdue are tremendous people. They should be in the United States Senate. They're desperately needed. But I told them today, I said, listen, you have a fraudulent system. You have a system where the flick of a switch or the putting in of a new chip can change the course of history. And you have to be very careful. I read this morning.
All right, so this next question was about the special elections in Georgia for the 2 Senate seats. He was asked, should voters in Georgia, given what he's been saying about election fraud, trust the process? And he essentially said no, they shouldn't, because there's he keeps claiming tons of fraud and all that good stuff, which is a really bad answer from his perspective. And not just because of democracy, but just from a strategic perspective. If I were Republicans in general, I would be furious at that answer. That answer is basically guaranteed to lower turnout for Republicans in Georgia, which could definitely help Democrats win those 2 seats. If Democrats win those 2 seats, they'll have a 50-50 Senate, which means the vice president decides is the deciding vote, and the vice president is obviously the vice president for President-elect Biden. So that was a really bad answer, both from a democracy standpoint and also from a strategic standpoint, especially for Republicans. I would not be happy if I was a Republican with that answer. Let's check out this last part. It's a short little bit.
I don't want to say that yet. I mean, I know the answer. I'll be honest, I know the answer, but I just don't want to say it yet. Look.
All right, so basically he was asked if come inauguration on January 20th, it's custom for the outgoing president to go, would he go? And he essentially said, again, he doesn't really want to answer, but we all know the answer, and the answer to that is he'll be there. He knows he lost this election, and the facts are not on his side. The law is not on his side, and the election was not on his side. So he knows this is just a show he's putting on right now, and he'll be at the inauguration. He will hand over the torch. He'll do everything basically to what he's supposed to do. If not, who cares? He doesn't need to be there. He can leave. He can go to Florida for all anybody really will care and play golf like he's been doing most of his presidency. It's not really necessary for him to be there. I don't want this. I know this has been very negative towards Trump, but I was watching this video, which I'll obviously link in the description. It's 44 minutes, and even there's parts I didn't show, and he repeated himself a lot. So I obviously didn't want to show him repeating over and over again the same thing, but a lot of it's just misleading and outright lying, and it makes it difficult to give cogent explanations of what the policies are if you're not actually telling the truth about what's happened and what's going to happen. It's really and it's particularly upsetting that he's doing it in front of basically an audience of the troops. So I'm sorry, this one probably sounded a little bit overly negative to Trump. I try to stay with the facts and stay away from the partisanship, but in this case, I couldn't not acknowledge that he wasn't being truthful in a lot of his answers. So hopefully you got something out of this and you learned a little bit about what President Trump plans to do, his answers to some questions. And if you did, please like this video. That shows me that you enjoyed what was going on. If you thought it was stupid, or you thought I was overly negative for Trump, or you didn't learn anything, obviously hit the dislike. But either way, tell me below what you think of the way President Trump conducted himself in front of the military, and if you think he's going to show up to the inauguration on January 20th with President-elect Biden. That'd be interesting to see. So, last but not least, obviously, please subscribe to this channel. That way you see the next video. And until next time, I'll see you around the internet. Have a great day. Bye.